You gotta take it out from your diaphragm, you know?
Oh yeah, I'm getting a radio collector.
Alright, ready and okay. Alright guys, thank you for joining our show today. I am Matt.
Oh, Jesus.
My name is Jonathan William Hand.
And I'm David Wehmeyer.
Alright, and thank you for joining our show today. So, news.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about this is going to be a little segment of our show called the software update, which basically is just like the news, small little news clips, but also maybe that one big story. So I think you came up with a couple small news stories, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, just a few. Today, since it's February 10th, the Far Cry 4 Overrun DLC was released, which essentially is creating a PvP kind of game, attack and defense, where you have territories that you need to take over and defend against the enemy. And it's releasing 2 other weapons, and then the Doom Buggy is coming with that DLC package.
And that didn't come with the game?
No, it did not.
Really? Because that's like, from my usual history of first-person shooter games, especially with an online component, that's usually one of the most basic, unless this is different than what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking about domination, where you're just capturing hard points and defending it and then trying to capture another one, and they're trying is that what it's basically like?
Yeah, it's
okay.
I mean, if you've ever played Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's essentially the same combat style is what I got from it anyway. I haven't played it myself yet, but I plan on it. And it's just one of those, I don't know, you're right, but at the same time it's not just that kind of PvP style, it's also got the Doom Buggy and 2 new weapons in it. I can't remember what those weapons are off the top of my head, it's really bothering me. But anyway, another thing I'd like to mention is there's going to be a new on February 6th, Nintendo released this thing saying that there's going to be a Netflix series about The Legend of Zelda, which is going to be the story about Link defending Hyrule. And that's the only information gotten so far. It's in still very early development, but I think it's going to be really interesting just because it'll be just a change of pace from...
It'll be interesting how it's probably going to be Japanese people creating it, I'm guessing.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be a anime show, kind of, or?
I think it's live action, isn't it?
Or live action?
When I saw a little picture of it, it looked like it was going to be animated 3D animation.
Oh.
But I mean, I think that's going to be probably the most appropriate way to do it, just because that's the closest way you're going to get the Link look, the Zelda look, the Ganondorf look. I mean, it's even though there's several different ways that have been designed by the Link, whether it's Wind Waker.
I think the animation, 2D animation would be pretty.
Yeah, I would love 2D animation because if it's I love hand-drawn animation. And I think that would fit it so well.
But 2D wouldn't be that attractive to most people.
It would fit.
Yeah.
Have you seen the?
It would fit for us because we know the game. But
right.
if you want to include other people or even children, we'll be a little bit bored.
And you also got to consider into production line, because it's a lot quicker to produce 3D animated animations versus hand-drawn.
The thing that I'm baffled by is that Nintendo's actually letting this slide. I thought it was a rumor. I thought it was a joke, an April Fool's joke, and I was like, it's not even April yet.
Yeah.
What is this? And then people are no, I'm serious. This is The Legend of Zelda on Netflix. I was like, Nintendo doesn't even let their games on the iPad. This is not happening. So
It's really interesting. Why is it on Netflix? Why wouldn't it be for example, in Japanese television first and then dubbed?
Yeah.
That's I guess what I would expect. If anything, that's how it would be.
I wonder if Zelda's a much more profitable franchise in America compared to other Nintendo franchises. I don't know.
I know Mario by far is the most successful franchise that Nintendo has ever created ever. However, Legend of Zelda is the most critically acclaimed.
Well, and it has much more of a storyline.
Right.
If you ask me what the storyline for Mario is, I don't know if there's even...
Save the princess from Bowser. That's
over and over again.
That always works.
She gets...
But the same thing with Legend of Zelda too. I mean, how many times has Link gone to kill Ganondorf? I mean...
Ganondorf, save Hymer.
But it has much more of a
Hymer,
story, I guess. The princess, it's he's laughing, but... So she gets stolen again for the 6th time.
I guess with the Legend of Zelda games is the way they present it. Each installment is its own different universe kind of.
Yeah. There's more to add to it. If they wanted to change something, it'd be a lot easier with the Zelda idea.
Take for example, Twilight Princess. What they did with that one, they made the Zelda franchise was kind of kind of like not so dark tone, and Karina, but yeah, the Twilight one they just they made it more mature, more like appealing to.
Because there's several storylines going throughout Legend of Zelda.
So I've heard, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 3 apparently, and maybe some are dark. One is darker than the other, and
Yeah, like more crazy ones like Majora's Mask.
And depending on the reviews they get, it's a lot easier to change Legend of Zelda 2, where it's still a serious story, but they can change it to make it like lighter or darker depending on what they want.
Right.
Whereas with Mario, people won't really watch it, even if they've never played the game, they're not going to watch it. Even if they've grown up, they won't really care that much.
Yeah, because I mean, Mario's not even about the style anymore. It's more about the.
Just the gameplay.
It's more about the characters. Like, I mean,
Ludology.
how many games have you heard about being released by Nintendo just because they had Mario in the title? I mean,
Yeah.
most of the games in the
Any
past
game
years,
they can.
most of the games that you remember are because of Mario. He's he's like
He's
right up there with.
their icon. They
Yeah.
exist.
Oh, he is the gaming icon. Like, there is no one bigger in gaming than Mario.
Yeah.
Like, you just ask children who have been alive for like 2 years, they know who Mario is.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it's impressive that it's been a mainstay thing since 1985
Yes.
or so, since Super Mario
I mean,
Bros.
he's right up. Mario is right up there with Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
All right. So does anybody else have any other news?
Do y'all still want to cover that big piece, the Xbox One, or do you want to
Well,
just...
I think it's.
I think it's something worth mentioning.
Okay, so recently Microsoft announced Windows 10 mostly for PC, but I think there's going to be a little bit of integration into Xbox One as well. And a lot of PC gamers, I think, have been pretty excited about this. I think one of my friends went as far as to say it's like a love letter from Microsoft to PC gamers. Just some quick things that they're planning on doing, like you can stream your Xbox One games to your PC desktop or laptop, and then also play in the same multiplayer matches with PC and Xbox One on the same server, I think. That's what I've heard. So one team could be on PC playing against a bunch of Xbox One people playing on the same multiplayer match. And then also...
It can be both great or terrible, and...
Yeah, I'm not trying to say like, this is the truth.
Yeah.
Everyone adopt Windows 10 right now. It is interesting that this is happening. I think the biggest thing about this, what I want to mention is, this seems so consumer friendly, which is so interesting that it was, like, what is it, almost 2 years ago to date when Microsoft announced Xbox One, and that was one of the worst. I'll go out and say that is the worst console reveal I've ever seen in my life. Like,
Yeah. No. Like it.
that was,
Yeah, I will say, after talking about the Wii U,
yeah.
Wii U, it wasn't user unfriendly, or it wasn't against the consumer, but it was, in marketing standpoint, it
wasn't well put to the public. Everyone thought it was just an extension.
That's
It's a
exactly
controller
what-
for the Wii. They
Yeah.
showed they just showed the controller during E3. Like, here's the Nintendo
Is it just
Wii
a
U.
controller?
It is a whole console. Like, the Wii U is an actual new console, but when they first announced it, they just showed the controller. So everyone's like, "What?"
I didn't even know.
It's very important to do the execution right when you're doing.
Yeah.
Obviously something.
Execution is everything. But I have to say though, in the last 2 years, they've definitely made up for it though. The Xbox One.
Yeah, it's been.
I mean, as well as they could. I feel like now it's compatible with the PlayStation 4, but
The problem with it is that they're gearing more towards whatever they want, and then they just react depending on what they get, rather than being like, usually what Nintendo is they know what the user wants and they go for that, and even Sony does that. Whereas Microsoft, it seems like they don't care at the beginning, and they've been mostly doing reactionary things. Windows 8 by itself is a complete just reaction. Like it sucked, so they said, you know what, we're dumping this and we're like gonna forget it. And they were even making Windows 9, I guess, but they said, you know, Windows 8 is so bad and we know it that we're just gonna skip Windows 9, and because 10 is a more recognizable number and everything, and we're gonna just go with it. And that's it.
I'll never understand that. That's one of the.
Windows 8.
I don't want to say Microsoft's a bad company, but some of the decisions it's not my place to say, but
Yeah,
it is interesting.
as a pro Xbox gamer, yeah, they've definitely made some.
I had an Xbox and a 360. After the 360, I had such a bad experience. I bought PS4, and I don't think I'm gonna.
Thank you for coming to the PlayStation.
Welcome to Sony.
It tells me a lot about where they're going forward. So if you're gonna, we are still students. We don't have that much money to buy both consoles. If you're gonna buy one, then I'm gonna go for the company that I can trust the most.
Right.
Until they make a mistake.
Right.
Which Xbox made, which when.
So you're waiting for another mistake for PlayStation, so you can switch back to it?
No, I don't know if I would switch back, but I mean I know Xbox One from the release date it already had made mistakes that I was already mad enough with the 360 with how the support was, and how the Red Ring was one of the. Red Ring, I think every gamer knows what it is. Red Ring
that was a very. But what got me, which is why, because I played Sony PlayStations and PlayStation 2, and the only reason why I went to 360 was because it was $600 to buy a PlayStation 3.
Yeah, and the game variety in 360 was much bigger than what was available for PS3.
Well, the funny thing is, like the Xbox 360 had a significantly a much weaker CPU, but the GPU was actually slightly more powerful than the PS3s. Where the PS3 had this, literally, I think at the time it was the most powerful CPU and one of the most powerful CPUs in the world. And so most games, if you actually developed it properly for the PS3, which was really hard, it would look better than the 360, but it was a lot easier to develop games for the 360 because it had a more powerful graphics processing unit. So most multi-platform games actually looked and performed better on the 360, which led to a lot of it helps.
I mean, the fact that I didn't know this, but the fact that they overlooked it for the PS3 is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Because usually before the release, they already have a good idea of what it's going to be for the complete console.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense.
And it's funny, this generation now, it's the PS4 and Xbox One. They actually have the same architecture, but the PS4 is not only more powerful like it was last generation, but it's actually easier to develop for than the Xbox One.
I thought it wasn't, actually. I thought that you had to go through a more rigorous
well, let me put it this way. The software is easier probably on Xbox One because it's Microsoft's their DirectX basic standard API, whereas Sony, it's a little bit different on the coding language, but the hardware itself is significantly more easier to develop for. It's just it's a big pool of GDDR5 and a much more powerful GPU. And
we'll have to see how it goes on forward, and I don't know. We'll see if they continue making mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, the Xbox 360 on its way out the door, PS3's on its way out the door, and now we just gotta look at
what happens now.
Yeah.
And they're two great consoles. I'm definitely not trying to say Xbox One's trash and PlayStation 4 for the win. I have preference, but at the same time, like you said, Microsoft has made some interesting, and I would say some impressive strides after what was one of the worst console announcements I've ever seen. So the fact that they're actually competitive to the PS4 after that, I give them kudos. That's impressive.
Yeah. Okay. So next we have a retrospective.
That's something that's dear and near to David's heart.
Even though I have not played yet the first and second Fallout, I have played the game that it was based on, which is Wasteland, or where they got their creative.
Which came out in 1988. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I played it a couple of hours. To be honest, because we didn't grow up in that area, it's a very hard game to play, and having played it on an emulator was a hard experience in itself just to get it running.
Well, I feel like before we go further, I'm so sorry for interrupting. I think we should clarify that this is the next portion of the show where this is going to be a past, present, and future, and this is going to be mostly a retrospective kind of feature for the show where we either talk about a game design, a game series, or something in the gaming industry and kind of compare and contrast it to how it developed throughout the years and where it could possibly go in the future. And so for this week, our first show, we're going to look at the Fallout series. And
and so Fallout 3, and I guess I'm not sure if I would like the first one or second. My guess is I would. And Wasteland actually made a game, Wasteland 2, which was a Kickstarter game that was released, I believe, last year. At the end of last year, is top-down view, so it is similar to Fallout 1 and 2. And I'm very interested in that game. It's still too expensive for me.
Could you tell us what kind of genre does it follow?
It's the same post-apocalyptic.
No,
It's turn-based,
yeah.
like XCOM.
Turn-based RPG, is it?
Yeah, I think
I
it's
believe
just-
yes, it has RPG elements, and you have a party of 4 people. That's different to Fallout, where
It's just
you can
one.
have a companion, but it's not you're not managing 4 different players.
Yeah.
You just have your main character and you go through it. And that might just be a decision that was made because of the type of gameplay where you're just first person and third person
Mhm.
as opposed to top down. Yeah. And
Was the first Wasteland, because this is good to get back into the history of Fallout since Wasteland was such a huge inspiration.
Yes.
Was Wasteland a very narrative heavy game, or was it mostly just a...
well, back then even like we were talking about Zelda, the first Zelda has just
There is no story pretty much.
it has a story, but most of it you fill it in because
Yeah.
there's so much time that you spend between the information that you get, and the information you get is just a couple of lines. That it's hard to call it a story sometimes, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would get mad at that statement. So
Well, the thing is, it's like, it is a story, but at the same time, I think it was quite elegant at the time, and it's just giving you that sense. And Shigeru Miyamoto has actually gone out and said that was one of his biggest inspirations for The Legend of Zelda was just him as like a young 6-year-old boy.
yeah,
It's just, he went to like forgot where he went to. He went to like a lake house, and he just like walked around and explored this lake it was either by his house or some place, I can't remember, but he was just exploring this lake to see what it's all about, and just that sense of exploration, of discovery. He wanted to create a game about that. That's what eventually led to what we know as The Legend of Zelda, and and I think he accomplished that tenfold so in the original game. And then people have argued that that sense of adventure has actually been quite squashed in the more recent iterations, where it's more telling you what to do, like, hey Link, go deliver these things, like...
Yeah, each has its merits, really. It comes down to user preference or the player preference, really.
Yeah.
I think, for example, Fallout 3, my guess is that, even though I haven't played the first and second one, that I would have a bias towards the third one because it's an open world and because the hardware has been updated enough to be able to accommodate that vision that Wasteland had, which was an open world vision. And even Wasteland, just in the time I played it, I could realize they didn't give you much information at all. At the start, it gives you characters and a party, but it's you make your own story really from the start. And I'm not sure if the first and second one of Fallout did that, whereas Fallout 3 has a very linear start, but for the most part, it's up to the player to decide.
See, but for Fallout 1, how the story was set up is you're living in Vault 13, and you need to get this thing called a water chip. And you're actually given a certain timeline in the game to obtain this water chip. And you're traveling to vaults, you're traveling to things. And it's a very open world experience, but and there's not really given any, like, you know, how in Fallout 3 you're given this mission and you need to complete it. And then it kind of continues the story of missions. Really, you were just given this one objective. And there's some side stuff, but it's kind of like the side stuff that we were talking about earlier, how help this town kill the scorpion, the radiate.
It does feel like filler.
Yeah, but it still has the main objective. But this,
In
you have
my
to understand that this game came out in
1997.
1997. There wasn't a lot of computing power to have a great story.
I believe it was
and-
impressive even for 1987.
Right, no, yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely a game of its time, and it has aged impressively well, but it's still aged, and it's just
It's very hard to go back to it once you've played
right, yeah.
newer version.
So mainly the thing that we're going to be discussing the difference between is Fallout 1 and 2 versus Fallout 3 and 4.
And what's upcoming?
Yeah, and Fallout, I shouldn't have said 4 because 4 hasn't been released yet, but I should have said,
It will be.
yes.
Are you so
Yeah.
sure? They have to announce Half-Life 3 first.
Wait, is it the same people?
No, Valve,
Oh, yeah.
Half-Life, Bethesda now owns the rights to Fallout.
I mean, Bethesda likes their fans, so they will release it before.
Yes.
I don't talk bad about Gabe Newell, not in my house. I think it's interesting, this is going to be like a really broad, kind of probably a bad summary of how the events of the games, or the game releases transpired, from what I've kind of understood, because, confession, I'm a gamer, but I'm not a perfect gamer. I have not played the Legend of Zelda series, and I have not played the Fallout series. So So I'm going into this blind. I had to do a little bit of research, and what I found is the first Fallout came out in 1997. Very good. Was very open in its gameplay and narrative structure. Critically acclaimed. Then the second one came out, and the first one was developed by Interplay and actually published by Interplay as well. And the second one was developed by Interplay and published by Interplay, and it came out the very next year in 1998. It was mostly just as successful critically. However, I think it was also not quite as
milking the success from the first one. That's what I felt.
And it was mostly samey, but still people loved it because they loved the first one so much. So it's like, get more of what you love. And then I think these Fallout Tactics, Brotherhood of Steel, I think one of them released in 2001, and also in 2004 there was a PlayStation 2 and Xbox.
Yeah, I've seen the cover at least.
And I've heard the one that released in 2001 for the PC didn't do terribly, but the one that released for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2004, the just straight Brotherhood of Steel, I think it did terribly.
So that's what possibly killed them?
Yeah, Interplay made that one, and it was after that they actually started development on Fallout 3, but they shortly went afterwards.
I've seen the at least screenshots and some of the gameplay, but they didn't really get the gameplay finished.
No.
They had just kind of a main story and a lot of art.
Like Pandemic, the Star Wars Battlefront 3. I'm still broken up about that, but I didn't.
What about Lord of the Rings Online? Or not Lord of the Rings, but Star Wars Online is just the same kind of big game, but Star Wars Old Republic.
Yeah, I was really just a fan of the
Is the
Battlefront, because I really loved. I was kind of at the age I was probably 9 years old, so Battlefront 2 came out.
It's still a good game.
That game, I think, out of all the games out of PlayStation 2 history and Xbox history, I think it has aged the best.
As a multiplayer game, yes, it's actually aged really well. It's still bloody fun to play.
What about single player?
Single player, I have a lot that I absolutely love. Now, I haven't played them as recently. I would like to see how they've aged, but I think they actually would hold up quite well, especially even compared to a lot of contemporary games. But I feel bad, I probably shouldn't take us away from the subject matter.
We need to get back to that was my fault.
No worries.
Fallout, it's very interesting because, for example, Half-Life 3, if it is going to be released one day, and if it is released and people don't like it, I think that would be a mistake because, I think most people will say a company like that with a game that is so iconic won't fail the next game. But if you look at Halo, they had the first Halo, which was amazing. The second one, which is a game that pretty much everyone in our generation has tried in one way or another and can recognize its good value.
And Halo 3 ended the trilogy perfectly.
And Halo 3 is a decent game. It was lower, I think, than Halo 2. It was more friendly because in Halo 2 there was certain things you could do for competitive play and multiplayer that were too complicated for younger children or for even people who aren't used to the shooters, which like BXB. I don't know if you know those things are like quad shot. I had a friend who played competitively, like national tournament and everything, and he showed me all these things and it got ridiculous. All those things were really exploits. They weren't really intended to be, but it made the game great because the game would react as you were shooting. Everything you did in the controller, whereas the animations themselves in Halo 3 didn't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
So I played Halo 3 the most actually, but
yeah,
I do think Halo 2 is the iconic of the three. But from there you would say, okay, they're all pretty good games, but then you have ODST, you have Reach.
I really liked ODST.
Yeah, I did too. It's a nice change of pace.
It was a unique change of pace.
But is that a personal or is it a critical? And
no, that's a very critical.
Critically, I think it was a good story. I do.
But in terms of performance in sales and in how long it lasted.
Yeah, I mean that.
I don't know, it did as well, but
I understand why it did poorly. Though state that. Because the initial intent, it was, Halo 3 ODST, it was supposed to be like a kind of a DLC pack, my understanding.
Okay.
I remember hearing about it as it was supposed to be an expansion.
I believe so, yeah.
But the fact that it became a separate game, it kind of worked out okay because it also had the beta to Halo Reach, and
Mhm.
it had a whole bunch of other unique. It tried a whole bunch of new stuff.
But was that from the beginning, or was that something they added because they realized, what, people are not responding
when
well to this?
I bought Halo 3 ODST, I knew that I was going to get a hold of the beta for Halo Reach.
Okay. Okay, I guess in that
Maybe
sense.
whether or not it was going to be announced or not, I don't know, but that's kind of what they did with their games.
But you really don't want to release a game and say it includes a DLC for the next game.
It wasn't a DLC because I didn't.
Or not a
pay-
DLC. You're getting the free download of the next game. I
Yeah.
think that's.
Moving back to
Fallout.
Sorry about
Sorry
that.
about it.
Dadgummit, David.
I really liked how even though Fallout 3 is technically a whole different series, it interpreted a lot of the stuff from the the first two
Yes.
that did well, and it made it into a whole new game.
And I'm not sure how it all worked out, but Fallout New Vegas is actually following the story that the Fallout 3 that was being developed first, and it wasn't finished. They took part of a lot of the story from Fallout 3 that wasn't finished, the one that the same developers from the first and second one did, and that's what they continued, and that's what a lot of it's based on.
It's interesting because that Fallout New Vegas, well, okay, so the Fallout Tactic games didn't do well. Interplay's going out of business. They have to sell, Fallout 3 for, I think it's $1 million and 175,000.
Yeah, it was over $1 million.
It's almost $2 million, and then Bethesda picked it up, and so Bethesda's working on Oblivion. They're just getting it wrapped up, and they're like, okay, let's now make Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is a huge commercial and critical success, and everyone loves it. Game of the Year, RPG of the Year, everyone loves Fallout 3, and I think Todd Howard's part of it. I don't know if it was him or someone that was just commenting, like, they want to go back to what made the original Fallout and the second Fallout so great, which is open gameplay structure and open narrative structure.
Yes. And they did that.
And I've heard it's been very well. I haven't played it, but
So they didn't have this IP before they made Oblivion?
they got a hold of it before they published Oblivion. The Bethesda's been
And I
making
wish I
Oblivion
had
or
played more
Elder
of it.
Scrolls. Sorry, go ahead.
I wish I had played Morrowind because I'm not sure if it was open world, but
I think it was.
It was.
okay, so they already had they figured this game that this company has fits a lot of the things we're already wanting for the games we're developing. Okay.
Yes.
Some
Yeah,
of
it
the-
was a
well,
nice
some of
fit.
the things with Morrowind didn't make it to the final cut of Oblivion or to the next.
Okay.
Like the random generated dungeons that they never make it because of the graphical.
It'd probably be too taxing.
Yeah, it was too much.
They did do a little bit within Fallout where it's not a random dungeon, but it's random attacks by people hunting you or something. But I mean, that's something games have been doing more and more.
Yeah.
And I think it was after Fallout 3's huge success that Bethesda was like, hey, cool, now let's go to our next Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim. And then people were like, hey, we want more Fallout. So they're like, how about we let Obsidian develop a game in the Fallout universe? And I think that's how Fallout New Vegas came to be about. And I think, yeah, it was actually exploring a lot of things that were in Fallout 2
Yes.
that weren't explored in Fallout 3, I think is what New Vegas wanted to explore. I think, that's what I've heard, is that correct?
It's one of the two. It's either, or maybe it's both. I think they also had all the information from the parts of Fallout 3 that didn't make it in the.
That's true.
Hey guys, I hate to really interrupt you, but we gotta kind of move on here. But so we're gonna go. A topic that we're kind of starting to bring into is we're gonna be talking about that we're gonna go ahead and just skip the party games and we're just gonna continue the Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls series versus the Fallout series. I think since we're kind of heading that direction, and
Okay. So
recently an announcement was made that Fallout is gonna be having a conference.
Not Fallout,
Or
but
Bethesda.
Or not Fallout, Bethesda. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's gonna have it's gonna be
I'm
having
watching you.
it's gonna be having a announcement or an E3.
Yeah.
And
The only thing that they would be willing to have an announcement about is obviously Fallout 4.
it could be Fallout 4, like Skyrim. Could it be
I
new, where they're in the universe, in
Now
space.
don't forget Dishonored 2.
Did
I'm
it?
a huge Dishonored fan.
Is that
I absolutely
that's
adore it.
Bethesda?
Bethesda's publishing it. It's being developed by Arcane Studios.
Okay.
Okay.
You
so-
might be the Evil Within or something.
And that's true. Bethesda's also published that. I think Bethesda also published Rage. Rage great gameplay, great atmosphere, terrible story.
Well, they have their own
It's-
E3 for the next Rage. I don't
Yes,
think
they
so.
would. No, I'm just joking. They wouldn't. But
Yeah, because I never really played Rage, but I just
The hype was really big, but it was short-lived. Even the hype just lasted a couple of weeks.
yeah.
I think it was one of the most graphically impressive games of the time. It was
Yeah,
like
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it looked beautiful. It looked to me. I
I
wanted to
re-
play it.
I remember there was a promo for it where it had like a game that was kind of being in like making fun of the Call of Duty series.
Yeah.
You know that what I'm talking about?
Which one?
There was a promo for Rage that had like at the very beginning, first few seconds, it was talking about it wasn't talking about, it was showing gameplay of like a really crummy version of Call of Duty.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Well, they actually made it into a game, and it's something that you
like
can
a mini game or something.
Yeah, it's like a little mini game that you can
Really?
play. Yeah,
Huh.
and it's a satire before it's a game. I wouldn't consider it a game at all because literally like you just go in a straight line, and there's like probably one enemy like every 100 steps you take. And every kill you get, you level up. Like it is a satire.
Yeah. But that's something
It's a cool commentary. I
I
think.
enjoy completely. Of
It's making fun of Call of Duty.
Something I like of the Fallout 3 and the open world is that they use comedy very well to just ease up the tension of what could be or should be a very serious subject, which is kind of just a dead world.
Yeah.
Everyone's dying of radiation. There's ghouls running around.
And you know, I have to admit that's something that the Elder Scrolls lack a little bit.
That's true. Yeah.
I
It
feel
has
like
some of it. Even Skyrim has a little bit, but it's not nearly.
it's not nearly as much as it is in Fallout for sure. The Elder Scrolls as a whole, it's I don't know. I feel like it's.
Do you think if the comedy was added, it would be good? Or
I think it would kind of do damage to it a little bit. I just feel like because.
It's just the theme of screaming. Sorry, the theme of screaming and fighting dragons. It's just you don't think of that as comedy.
Well, I'm not even talking about like Skyrim in general. I'm thinking about, although like, no, yes, the screaming as itself, as a concept, is very funny. Yes, but like no. But like just every kind of game that I don't know much about Morrowind. I've only really played Oblivion and Skyrim. But in Oblivion, you're playing as a person that's got to stop all the Oblivion gates, and it's very like humanity or life as we know it is on the line. Very high-strung, like destiny-driven kind of gameplay. Whereas Fallout,
they had more space to do that.
yeah, they had a little because I feel like you didn't hold life in humanity. You didn't hold like humanity, the life itself, in your hands as the player. I mean, you did for your vault in Fallout 1. You did some stuff. You did have like people did matter to you.
Well, in New Vegas, you had to. Well, yeah,
You had to recover it.
If you die, nothing happens.
Right.
Well, I think like the thing is, even if it is high stakes, I think you can still have like. I think from what I've heard, I haven't played the Fallout series, but from what I've heard, it reminds me a lot of Stanley Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove, where it's like not as funny as Doctor Strangelove, but the fact that this is like a nuclear holocaust on the line. The movie. Spoilers. I'm just gonna spoil something, so close your ears for about 10 seconds before I say something. The ending is like the world ends in a nuclear holocaust, everyone dies. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen ever, and
Just ruined the movie for me.
I'm sorry. It really doesn't matter because
You won't even remember. I didn't even remember that part. I watched it with you. Like.
it's heavy stuff. It's talking about like how incompetent some people are and like how dangerous we have become as a species. It's just bloody funny.
Yeah.
So I think you can have heavy material and humor. It's really tough to do though.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like it with maybe like if they were to try and make it the yelling funny, I think that would really kind of deter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yes, as a concept, it is funny, but it would kind of deter away from it.
Yeah, I meant it as I think it would. Yeah, it would be hard to make it funny, and that as a power, you wouldn't want it as funny, and just the universe itself maybe is more reliant on Oblivion than Fallout. Fallout 3, they bought this from a new company, and they created it completely different. The whole play style is different.
Yeah.
So the users and the players, they weren't wanting to please the players from the previous generation because they were in contact with them. It wasn't part of it wasn't their conception. Whereas Oblivion, it's probably even more personal to the people that are making it.
Yeah, not every game has to be like funny and dark at the same time, and not every game has to be super serious. Like I'm glad that there's games that are like I just love variety. Like I don't want every game to be my favorite type of game.
Yeah.
Because at the same, if I said that, then someone else could easily come and say like, well, why isn't every game your least favorite type of game? And you know, it's like and variety is good. But what was I gonna say? I've lost my train of thought. Should we say something so I don't keep rambling?
What about open world? Have you played any open world games? Do you play GTA?
Yeah, I play GTA. Oh,
How do you feel compared to like single storyline?
Wait, we haven't even gotten. We're gonna get into that later a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay.
But yeah, in terms of
What's your guess for Bethesda? What are they gonna do in that E3?
oh, for E3, I definitely think they're gonna release Fallout 4. They're gonna talk about Fallout 4. They couldn't talk about since they just released Elder Scroll Online last year. Since that happened, I think they're gonna probably take a few steps back from Elder Scroll for a while, only because Elder Scrolls Online did so poorly. At the same time, though, I would really like to see a continuation of Skyrim.
Fallout Online.
Fallout Online? Actually, I feel
want
like
that so
that
that they can screw it up later.
Yeah.
I would not want Fallout Online yet. I would want them to succeed in make all your mistakes.
They're probably succeed. They're already
They'll
failed.
succeed in making a game. I like to play
Learn
David Hayes.
everything you need from the Skyrim series. Burn it to the ground.
They already messed up with Elder Scrolls, so they might take the mistakes from that and implement it.
they might actually make an honest
It's
Fallout
next
there.
on the chopping block. Why not?
Yeah, and they could
Elder Scrolls
actually
didn't
release
work, it's just
a
a
Fallout
Fallout
4 being an online thing.
I also think they're probably going to take a step back from the online play because I'm sure they put a lot of development money into it.
Oh yeah.
I think it's.
Well, the thing is that their games have always been one player.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
it's-
mean, usually like even Blizzard is usually a strategy game. I mean, Warcraft 3 is a strategy.
But they knew about the multiplayer. They had already done other players.
That's true. They had some elements in.
Elder Scrolls Online was a unique experience. I know that me as a fan of Elder Scrolls games was expecting it for a while. It wasn't that it was performed poorly, it wasn't executed poorly, it was just that it didn't, there were some minor details that it needed that it didn't have.
It didn't.
This monthly subscription thing, sorry.
It happens to a lot of games.
The monthly subscription really just destroyed it. That's what I think it was. I
Well,
think
you have to pay for it?
Yeah,
Besides buying the game?
That's
yeah,
the
okay,
thing.
monthly subscription.
Get my wallet out.
It happened with
We
a lot
had
of
this
games.
huge
where
conversation about.
They had a lot of games that started off wanting to copy World of Warcraft with their monthly subscription,
Yeah.
and they realized people aren't buying our game. We have to make it free.
Yeah.
But whenever there's a couple of games that are good examples. No, Game Wars when it started has always been buy and play.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean though. Like because they're trying. That Guild Wars is the only MMORPG that I've seen that's like successful.
Yes,
World of Warcraft.
And it's done very well with that. I'm not exactly sure why there hasn't been a company that's successful because Guild Wars 1 and 2, like there wasn't a universe that it was based on that had a lot of history, whereas you would expect Elder Scrolls to be a lot.
Right, like it would incorporate. Because I mean, if you just look, I remember reading or looking at a chart of. I know we gotta move on.
No. I was just joking. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I'm messing with you too. It's fine.
Okay.
We'll get back to it.
Yeah. But if you look at a diagram of the history of the Elder Scrolls, it starts hundreds of years in the past and it just goes on. There's just thousands of years of this history created by the Elder Scrolls franchise.
Yeah,
and there's even parts in the games or parts in the history that aren't mentioned in games. And I think that's something that I find stands out a little bit better than Fallout, only because Fallout, it's hundreds of years ago, so there was a nuclear holocaust, and so for hundreds of years everybody was hot.
That's probably the reason Fallout is so different from Skyrim.
Well, yeah.
They already have they don't want to ruin their Elder Scrolls because they already have their story made up. In Fallout, well, you just start in an apocalyptic
Yeah.
setting already there.
Yeah, it's story. It's a lot.
And
It's a lot more
the Elder
indoor.
Scrolls is more serious. I guess they want to make it more serious since they already are building up in a history. That they
Yes. Elder Scrolls is much more of a universe than Fallout is definitely. Fallout is, it has a much, it's just mainly an idea that has been done a couple of times and with variation, but definitely doesn't have a universe that is trying to represent or anything. So each has its benefits, I think. I think having a universe and having the player be able to, throughout, I guess, a couple of years, I guess go back to it and enjoy like Dragon Age or some other games is good, but also Fallout isn't relying on the performance of the previous games as much. It is relying, but it's not as dependent on.
Yeah. But then, not that there's anything wrong with relying on a big story like that, because I mean, look at
No,
Star
I mean,
Wars.
but I think for example, what you said is true that they aren't going to release the next Skyrim because the Elder Scrolls did so bad. They have to let it, like, people forget about it. Whereas with Fallout, I think if they made it online, then they said we're making Fallout 4, they're going to be like, you know.
I don't know when Elder Scrolls Online took place for sure, but I remember in like watching ads and stuff. I think it took place before Skyrim. It was going on during the Oblivion Crisis. It was kind of because in Oblivion it was just kind of focused on what was happening in the Empire, whereas Elder Scrolls was, I don't know if this is true or not. So
Or Skyrim, or
it was kind of taking place kind of all over Tamriel, which is the main world of the Elder Scrolls where they take place. So
The online one, wasn't it?
yeah, the online. So you were playing, shutting down Oblivion gates
Yeah.
in Skyrim and all the other worlds.
And I have a question. Do you think, had it been successful, do you think they would just, for example, had it been successful, they just release Skyrim or Elder Scrolls Online, then Fallout Online, and then just keep that going rather
Instead
than
of making the-
standalone games? Full
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
single-
I don't think it's, well,
I would think they would consider it.
They would have continued because they said they were gonna keep adding sections of the world.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
I wonder if they're gonna do it, or if they're gonna be like, we're done.
Well, if they're gonna add more stuff to it, then they need to stop with the monthly subscription because
I think that it's already stopped actually.
Really?
Not sure exactly.
it's supposed to be free to play, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about to be like pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna start to get a little bit more hype now if they release like new DLCs with it and stuff like that, with the new it's free to play now kind of thing.
But it's there's a lot of games that has happened too.
Well, I hate to move
Yeah,
on,
we
guys, but now we got to move on to the new section of Game-ology.
Okay.
And the game that we're going to be focusing on, which is a little bit different than what we've been talking about for most of the show, is going to be the Stanley Parable.
The Stanley Parable.
Now, I haven't personally played this game much myself. However, I have seen people play it, and I know the detailed concept of it well enough to discuss it.
Yeah. Have you played it?
Have you played
No,
it?
I haven't played it. Well, I've seen gameplay about it. It looks pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Like that for time thing or messing with the player.
Yeah. Where and PT does it too. Even though I'm talking about playing it, saying a different game, but
No,
it's very interesting how the commentary or the narrator either follow him and sometimes you follow him and it's good, sometimes you follow them, it's bad. And
That
you
is
just don't know what to trust him. And
It's just
I don't even know if there's a way to figure out the narrator or if it's purposely made so that you can't.
How long is the game? Like,
Okay, so I own the game. I absolutely adore the game. It's a game by Galactic Cafe. It's an excellent commentary. Well, first of all, it's just funny. It doesn't take long to get into it because it's just got such a snappy and witty pace for its humor. And then the gameplay is immediately intriguing. You want to know what's going on, and it's just got awesome. The thing about it is, it has good level design and it has awesome tactics to guide the player, but then it uses those to turn itself on its head to encourage interactivity and encourage exploration that defies what the narrator is saying, like y'all are saying. It's just really, it's a brilliant and beautiful commentary and celebration of narrative design in video games, something that I hold very dear. Some people might argue that narratives have no place in game design, because game design should be as free-flowing and it should be as open and it should be allowing players to explore and
there has to be a balance
themselves.
between.
I mean, more recently, companies have been realizing that with the upgrades, with more capabilities, that narrative has a place, definitely. Whereas in the 80s, in the early times, all the effort was put into.
Well, you couldn't put a narrative on those back then because
You could, but it was very tedious. It was very tedious. With Wasteland, like you just have to read wall text.
It was a lot harder to put together a narrative in older games. That being said, I mean, there's tons of narrative games that were in the past. Like,
It was a different thing. I enjoyed having to draw your maps out and stuff like that. That adds to it. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't usually see that much nowadays where it actually, well, most games nowadays, I would say, don't even really expect too much from the player, even just like the thought process. They don't expect them to have too much critical thinking capabilities on themselves to
true. Yeah.
And that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, but you also have to understand that you have to appeal to a demographic when selling a game.
And that's something that's so true. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's an indie game, right? That's the beauty about indie games, right? They're so short, but they have so much deep meaning into them. Like Limbo or Stanley Parable.
Is Limbo what?
Stanley Parable.
Stanley Parable.
Is it an indie game?
The Stanley Parable. Well, technically, it's not.
I mean, technically, well, I first heard about the Stanley Parable
in being a mod.
Being a mod, of Half-Life 2.
It was just, I believe, one person who wrote the game, or they had the idea, and then enough people liked it to where
they got a team behind it.
Yeah, it was like a Minecraft story, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And there's other games that are, I mean, indeed, like I guess what you can call indie games that are, I mean, they just have a lot more space to do experimentation, because that's what they have to do to compete with AAA games.
Yeah.
Because you can't try to make the next Call of Duty if you just have 8-10 people on your team. It's probably not going to be.
That's how most indies would start, no? By modding the game.
Yeah,
that's
DayZ
is one of
DayZ is, but itself, it's gotten so much money that they've opened a new studio, and they have 2 studios working on it with, I believe it's a team of maybe 10-15 people each, from it being a mod to a game. And even Dota 2 is the same thing. Dota 2 is pretty big right now.
Counter-Strike.
LoL itself is based on the same thing as Dota 2, which is a game that was just a custom game from Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
So those are
Yeah.
League of Legends is arguably one of the biggest games right now.
I think it's the most played game.
It's the most played game. I don't know what their income is, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty high. And
for a free-to-play game.
For a free-to-play game. Yeah, exactly. Because I know the only thing that you purchase is skins.
That's all you buy.
Freaking insane. Wow.
And you might buy 2. You can buy extra characters, but you have the ability to
unlock them.
The only thing that is completely money-based is the skins, and they make a huge amount of money from that. And it's probably the closest sport in gaming right now. I guess there's been StarCraft 2 in Korea.
The MOPA genre is one of the most up-and-coming...
sports.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a sport, because...
I think it is...
Competitive. It's one of the most competitive events in the upcoming...
I mean, the World Championships, I don't know if you knew this, but they filled the stadium.
Yeah, no, I know.
I guess it's hard to call it a sport, but in a way you can...
It's a highly competitive event.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm not disagreeing with you. I wouldn't call it physical activity.
Oh, no,
that's the only thing why I would call it a sport.
For example, chess is a sport.
Okay, yeah.
There's not much physical activity involved there.
I mean, moving the chess piece though.
Well, I mean, there's probably more like physical movement in League of Legends than there is in chess.
It's definitely a lot more high strung.
It's very...
I feel bad when I'm gonna feel bad when I say this, but I'm like, how did we go from talking about the Stanley Parable to...
we definitely need to bring that.
I'm so sorry.
We need to go back to the Stanley Parable.
Okay, so the game has you starting in the office, you're being controlled by the narrator.
Yeah.
It just asks you to perform all these mundane tasks. Well, it actually tells you how you think and feel. It's like, Stanley got up, and he felt curious. Stanley went to the conference room to check on everyone. And it expects you to go that way. And if you don't, he'll be like, and Stanley took a really long time. And then you can stand there for a long time and like, Stanley really, really didn't want to go. But eventually, he did go. And if you stand there more, he's like, okay,
It changes
Just go.
depending
Yeah.
on what you decide.
Yeah, I mean,
It's impressive.
it's kind of a satire to linear games, for sure.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, a lot of linear games, when they're designed, like Mass Effect is the one that always comes to mind when I think of a linear game, because there's really not much.
You have a couple options, but in the end, it's not.
Yeah,
that
like in
different.
the Citadel, and that's pretty much it. But in terms of like just the Stanley Parable, it's a satire because I mean you have a narrator telling you word
Yes.
for word what you need to do, but you're given an option
Mm.
through gaming controls. You're given a freedom to kind of defy
Or follow it. You
or
can.
follow it. Yeah, you can
That
do
being said, usually I believe it's 2 options each time, most of the time. Like,
Mostly binary things, but there's some interest. Like the cool thing about it is, and it's through some impressive again. Like in most game design, like when the developers want to like funnel the player in a direction, they usually don't want to be like too heavy-handed. So they want to do subtle things like say the correct path. There's more lighting in that direction, or there's a light there to kind of subconsciously show the player like, ooh, light, good, and then or like people in the audience or in the crowd or people in the environment like walking in that direction or something like that, or just looking in that direction in general,
You either follow people or go into that dark alley or something.
or something.
Right.
Like, there's got to be something like it's this weird blend of obvious but not so obvious that it's hopefully letting the player know like, hey, let's down here, and then that's where you're supposed to go.
Either way, always keeping it challenging towards your intuition or your desires. Because even if you follow it for a while, you start questioning yourself and how much you're supposed to trust this voice.
Yeah, it's like, well, the thing about it, like there were some articles I was reading, and one from VG 24/7, and it was an interesting article about the design of the Stanley Parable. It was kind of a small little critique on it, and it was interesting because it's like, most video game people, players are like, I think they've just gotten used to like walking down a corridor where there's like a bunch of closed doors and one open door at the end. Like,
Yes.
oh, well, that's where you go. And I think a lot of new players coming into games, they would like check on the doors like, well, why can't I go in here? And that is play. That is play. That is experimenting. That is like saying like, well, can I go in here? Why is that the only one I can go through? That's what the Stanley Parable is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is frustrating at times when you're playing a game and there's like a door that you can tell is not a door. It's just like graphically there, like part of the
Yeah.
texture, and you're like, I wish like I could just like shoot a rocket through this and see what's behind it, even if it's just like a locker room or like storage.
I do need to say this one quick thing though. That's kind of why I like Valve, because when their games are like that, they like Left 4 Dead and Half-Life are the main two I'm thinking about right now. But what they'll do is they'll have doors that aren't necessarily part of the story, but you can kind of open them and look inside anyway.
So they've noticed this.
Yeah, they know that like even though both of those games are incredibly linear, that the player is going to want to explore regardless.
That's an interesting way to.
And I feel like that's what some games need.
Yeah, that are definitely.
And some games will even reward you for doing it. Like I know that if you look into this doorway, you'll find like a secret weapon or
a lot of times
feather or whatever.
trophies, or
It's just mostly relegated to the small stuff like that, and it is kind of a shame in many ways, but it's also interesting,
I mean, we're hoping that going forward, more developers will use this in a
Have the
more
ability
creative
to-
way than trophies or.
Or like there's
Shells
the
under
collectible for
water.
100% completion.
100% for
Seven.
opening all the doors.
Yeah.
Did you say the shells in San Andreas?
San Andreas shells. It's one of the most. To this
And horseshoes. Oh my gosh, horseshoes too. They had
Horseshoes, yeah. And that was for also San Andreas or.
Yeah, that was San Andreas. Yeah, horseshoes
Yeah.
were kind of found on the land, whereas shells were in the water.
In the water where there's nothing really.
Yeah.
There's not even. I think is there fish in
I
San
think
Andreas?
there might be some sharks that are just like, they're completely straight, so they'll just like,
They just like their texture.
yeah. Well, not like a texture, but this is like really straight model that's not animated,
There's
other
a
than it
sprite.
just
And
turns
if you were
around.
to like swim out far enough,
Yeah.
the only thing that the shark could do would kill you if you were to swim out. But like usually I would never go that far out
Maybe because
it's
there's
so
time
time-consuming.
There's no reason to.
I've done it with a boat. You go just repeat the map. You go straight and you appear on
Are
the
you
other
kidding
side.
me?
Yeah,
Really?
that's
I've never
what
done that.
happens.
That's freaking
I've actually never
insane.
done that. Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know if it was in San Andreas or on GTA 4, but yeah, that happens. You go all the way around and you come back to the
So
other side.
yeah,
You've crossed the world. You made
Just
the whole
just
sphere of
one-
the planet and came back to the same city. What's the chances? No, just
I'm not exactly sure what the idea was, and I would be very interested to talk to somebody who says, you know what, the shell mechanism or the shell
mechanic.
part in GTA San Andreas was amazing, and
That was evil. Are you
coming
kidding
in
me?
the game, like that just
It
did
just
it for me.
put a smile on their face. They're like, I drew fan art of those
Yeah.
shells.
I had screenshots printed in order of each shell.
Somebody finding, what was it? It was 99 shells, right?
It was 100 shells, I believe.
Or 100
I think it was
shells?
100 shells.
Finding 99
And the
stuff.
horseshoe ape one. I don't know.
And then there was like 40 horseshoes, and those must have been like in just like
I don't know.
Santos or something like that. Oh, and no, it was 99 spray painting things, because like you had to, only in Los Santos there was 99 different places where you could spray paint
There's another
over.
thing I just remembered. There's random picture spots. I don't know if you know that or any of you.
Random
know that.
picture spots?
Yes, you took a picture.
Yes, I do remember that,
You
yeah.
took a picture, and once I took a picture, and it's like 1 out of like 140. You're like, wait, what?
Wait, which
Yes,
one?
you had to go in
The
and
new
San
one?
Andreas.
The new one? Or, oh,
And there's the one that came out
Yeah.
for the Xbox.
Yeah.
So was it GTA 4?
No, San.
No, GTA 4 you had to find
Those
freaking birds, solar.
What are they called again? Like flying birds or something like
Yes, yes, I had to find all the
The
hundred
pictures.
birds. He was suffering.
But they were at least moving.
Yeah,
No,
I'm actually,
no,
they were
no,
stationary.
they were
just like
stationary.
sniper.
I'm actually going back and playing Grand Theft Auto 4 for the first time, and I haven't seen any sign
No?
of those.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
they're like in different parts and they glow like little red.
Yeah.
They're like red. And if you shoot, it's just.
No, like I haven't seen a sign of those things. Granted, I'm not that far into the game. Like I just got to the part where Nico's apartment just caught on fire.
I guess
It gets better. I actually really like GTA 4.
That's just where I'm at right now. That happened, and then I'm at that new apartment.
But yeah,
at the other part of
just-
town.
Yeah. Stanley Parable
Yeah,
does a
let's-
good job at avoiding
Avoiding this
random
crap
picture
like that.
spots and shells, which
Yet,
whoever in Rockstar is doing this,
it's not just Rockstar too. It's Ubisoft. Ubisoft's worse. Like having Assassin's Creed. Okay, look, we're getting off track. But
it
like
just
Stanley Parable, it makes me want to explore by defying the narrator.
yeah, exactly.
Which
Just-
I think that's a fine line between games. That's where it needs to be.
And I think it's very games that like Amnesia and like Stanley Parables that you don't have weapons, you don't have anything really to start off with. You don't have an HP like a health bar. You don't have anything. All you're doing is following.
Walking
And
and
Amnesia you
interacting
do
with
have
us.
some, but Stanley Parable all you're doing is walking in,
Yes.
exploring the world. And the fact that it keeps you
Engaged for so long.
engaged, and even more than games that do have that, it I think has a lot to say to as to the
It's-
exploration that there's still to be
I
had.
had
It's
something
just
to say.
curiosity to just.
Yes, exactly.
And the thing is, like, games. What makes games fun is learning. When our brain like discovers a
It's
new pattern,
challenged.
and it's like, what the heck is this? And you kind of start figuring it out. There's a little bit of challenge there, and you overcome that challenge, and you say, okay, now I've learned this pattern. Let me fully learn it and chunk it in memory. That's called fun, and our brain, that's how we get high. It's a natural high. So
Yeah.
the fact that,
That's the
well, the
word.
thing is, like most games, like shooter games, like we've already learned those mechanics. We've already learned, like, oh, you aim down the red side and you shoot, and
Yeah,
so on
it's
and so
rewards too, but it's
It does,
It's
yeah.
different. It's completely different.
Whereas this game, it's like you're learning all the time. When you just interact with something and it gives you feedback, you're like, what I'm doing actually matters.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning and you're constantly having a good time. Of course, this game isn't gonna last you for like 20 hours or anything. It's short, but it's really sweet and it gets to the point. It's got an awesome commentary.
You're happy about it at the end. You don't feel ripped off whether you're
And it's not too expensive. Well, it's $20. Well, I forgot how much it used to be.
retail.
Retail. I personally think it's worth the money just because as a game designer I love
It's
the
unique.
commentary it makes. That being said, like I was listening, I don't know if we should segue into this conversation. I don't think that all games have to be like completely open for like play and experimentation. I just think that it's interesting. I think it's good, especially as a game designer, to be aware that this is something. These are the tropes of video game design,
Yeah.
especially for narrative-based games. So, would you like to go in that direction, or should we?
Yeah, no, right now, what I've noticed with a lot of games that are being released is there's going to be a finite narrative with the setting placed in a very open world.
Yeah, like
I shouldn't say very open world, but I should say like a
More than before, more than the usual what we expect for.
it's not
yes.
just mission 1, mission 2, mission 3, mission
Right.
4, mission 5, conclusion.
yeah. It's not like Call of
Like-
Duty where it's just mission after mission after mission. It's very you're put in an open world where you can explore to a certain extent, but there's a detailed story that you can follow along and just like follow that with no problem.
Well, I would say the stories have probably gotten less detailed. Not to say this, I don't know how to explain this. Most video game stories in the past, and I love video games. This is my biggest passion. I want to be a developer. I will acknowledge very few exceptions of the rule. Most video game stories are not that great, unfortunately. There are some exceptions where they're just gorgeous, and not only gorgeous stories on their own, but they actually incorporate gameplay mechanics and use it as a storytelling device.
It
And
uses
that's
its potential.
ace. It uses the medium to its full potential. I'm like, well, we need more of this. Why do we have more of everything else? And it's like,
Yes.
and that's just me personally.
I think all serious gamers agree with you in their own way. Maybe some people want,
Well,
why isn't
different types
everyone
of
making
genres.
shooters?
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone making,
Mhm.
I don't know, what's a really bad game?
So you think shooters are bad?
I'm
The
just
elephant in the room.
like, why isn't everyone making Angry Birds or something? Like,
Yeah.
the game is so amazing and just blows everything out of the water. Like,
Well, I think Angry Birds is very fun enough. One of our friends, however, can't stand Angry Birds.
What's and I agree with you. Where it's a handful of games that
Yeah.
really.
Take
But
advantage.
it's because of that lack of story though that they had to. I shouldn't say compensate for open world, but like give more opportunities for the player.
Yes, we do. There's a lot of right and wrong ways that you can do open world. Whereas I think with a single storyline, there's either your story is bad or good.
Well, the thing about it is,
There's other things to add.
yeah, like for me personally, why I prefer. First of all, my bias is I started playing games mostly on the PlayStation 2, and I grew up playing games like Spyro the Dragon, Prince of Persia, Metal Gear Solid Splinter Cell. Those are the games I grew up on. They're fairly linear narrative games, so I have a soft spot for those kind of games. I love open world games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, but I think my home will always be those very narrative driven games. No matter what type of game it is, that's what I prefer. But I also like playing games for fun, just some random games like I'll play.
So you're saying they're not serious.
Well, the thing is, like, it doesn't matter how serious or not it is. It's just there's some games that I like to play just for the ludus, just the play, just the learning, just the cutting loose and being like, I'm just gonna mine some gold or just do this, that, the other, and then
Are you saying that's fun?
See, I haven't played Fallout yet, so I can't say it's probably garbage. But I really do want to play Fallout. But I think a narrative game done right, in my opinion, is when you say, when you have the gameplay designed and the narrative designed in conjunction with each other, and so they're actually both utilizing each other to the best of their abilities.
We'll see.
And he's
So far, I would say the strongest games, if I would name probably like, not even just personal preference, but in terms of popularity and in just acclaim, if I were to say top 10, top 20, I would say most of them are probably linear games. I think that's
for
because...
story though.
Yeah, but I
know Super Mario is a really good game.
best storyline.
And it never fails.
I cried the first time I jumped on Goomba.
Just the first time I got a coin, it was
Ecstasy.
All right. Well, I mean, I hate kind of cutting us off about this, but we got to start wrapping up. But before we go, I kind of want to talk about, since this is kind of our first official episode, even though it is a demo, talk about our favorite video game entry, like
Cinematic intros? Yeah.
cinematic intros. Now, I'm gonna set the rules real quick. It can't be a tutorial. You can have some minimal gameplay in it, but it can't be like learning controls to a game.
okay.
So it can't be actual gameplay. It's just mostly the audio-visual experience. Right?
Yes, but it's mostly that. Like there can be a character walking through this cinematic thing,
Okay.
but it's mostly to try and get you set for the story. It's not learning how to play the
Okay.
game. So I'll go ahead and start because I've thought about this for a while. I guess my favorite cinematic intro would be Mass Effect 2's. Mostly because it literally just shits on everything that you have learned about in Mass Effect 1. Like,
Remind me.
I mean, it does sound nasty, but
I played Mass Effect
Is there
2.
spoilers? Because I haven't.
But
Yeah, I haven't played it either, so
And I'm-
please
and I'm-
don't spoil it.
I mean, it's the cinematic. Like, he's not gonna spoil the cinematic.
it's a cinematic. Like, this is stuff that you were
It's the
going
first thing you watch.
This is the first thing you watch, and it just completely destroys it by destroying the main ship that you're on all throughout the first one. Killing the main character. Which later comes back. He later comes back to life. So
That would be ours.
You just ruined the experience. I finished the first one.
It's just like, please no spoilers, like, oh, we're not gonna spoil it. It's like, yeah, he dies.
You said spoiler free. What the heck?
That was, I'm sorry.
As a
Please
zombie,
continue.
yeah, as a zombie. Yeah. No, but I mean, it's just a very tragic intro, and it's.
Just
now I just can't stop thinking about how bad I feel.
No, don't feel bad.
Ruining the game for.
just a very unexpected and
It was
Yeah, it
completely.
kicks you off your feet.
Yes. I was thinking it was going to go one direction, and it
yeah.
does not go that direction, and it just.
The first one really involves the player, and you get I would even say the first one, the gameplay to me was not the most exciting, but I kept playing because of the story.
Right.
So whenever you're expecting, okay, like the usual is just to continue the storyline. You're definitely not expecting that in a intro cinematic, but it makes you want to play the game that much more.
Yes.
You're hoping
The
that
stakes are already higher.
Yeah. And it makes it, sometimes it's just hard whenever, okay, I've been playing this game for like 10 versions now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. Whereas this was.
Yeah, like I will always go back to Mass Effect 2.
Okay.
Always.
I think you know which one.
Do we want to get through your list first and then go through?
Or just-
just our favorites.
Oh, we're only doing one?
Yeah, we're just gonna do one just because.
Oh shoot, I thought we were.
You can do 3, I'll give you.
Okay, fine.
Well, I have two.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so first one that comes to mind, it's Predator 2's intro, cinematic intro. You don't play, but it's like one of these live action movies where you're introduced to the characters, like to some of the characters that you meet up, and first thing that happens, boom, you're getting attacked, and like it's really like not like an intense moment, but
It's
getting
I
there.
think it's in a sense I don't know if revolutionary, but it's different in that strategy games usually do not have any kind of. They do have some sort of videos but they use the mechanics of the game themselves within the main campaign to use. But for a game to have that in the beginning was.
Yeah, it was pretty cinematic to instead of just having gameplay like footage or and something like that. So yeah, it just had.
Is it amazing? It's kind of cheesy. It's really cheesy.
Yeah.
But
It made itself feel like a part of that series. Like when you think of that series, you're like, I
Like
expect.
it literally redefined the series, the regular series. The first one was a bit more serious. It's still like comedy. It was satirical about the Cold War and about the nations, like Germany and Soviets and everything. It's still very stereotypical. The second one was like it totally like took it out of proportion. Still like I don't know.
same theme, but
Yeah, same thing, but like it took the whole new level to the realist stereotype how crazy the game could be. You get the USA getting invaded by the Soviets and mind control out of nowhere.
they have elements that aren't. I mean, they're more fantasy and.
And you get all that like glimpse through like the first few minutes of that movie.
Yeah, and I think the movie is maybe like 2 minutes. It's a short thing, but it's definitely something that as a child I played it maybe when I was like 12, 13, and I remembered very well when I came
Best
back to
strategy
it.
game ever too. So, yeah.
Alright.
And the other one was it's a Medal of Honor game, European Assault.
Okay.
For the GameCube. So
Thinking a little bit, yeah.
this is a World War II game. This one starts with once you start like the game.
Is it
the second? Huh?
Is it that when you start with AD?
No,
That's
no,
Frontlines.
no, that's from.
Okay, no.
Yeah, so European Assault, you are playing a USA soldier, and you're like in the
Usually.
British forces. So the game starts kind of like a documentary, like this guy in an old voice, he's recalling kind of like what he did in the war. And from there, like you get like documentary footage, it goes black, and you get the name of the movie, and then it starts the movie. I mean the cinematic video of the first mission, and it gets really intense. Like From there, they go into you have the soldiers. They present the character, the main character, and some other British guy.
All of it's without gameplay. It's just part of the.
Yeah, it's part of
Presentation.
the first movie, and yeah, it's all calm, and I don't know, boom, start shooting at each other, and it gets pretty chaotic, and really fast, and yeah,
It's really good presentation.
yeah, it's really
Did you play? Did you play that?
I've played Medal of Honor Frontlines and Medal of Honor Rising Sun. Played a little bit of VRF and Assault, but I don't think I remember that intro, unfortunately. Like,
Yeah, right.
I play Frontlines for a bit, and I'm usually not really good at remembering presentation or the initial video, but
Frontlines was, I think, iconic because it was actually footage reel of D-Day, and we had like a general saying like, this will be.
Yeah.
Oh, he was reading the letter to the brothers in arms.
land, and everyone's
it goes-
dying around you because
Yeah.
they're attacking a bunker straight on.
Yeah.
And no, I remember the gameplay. The gameplay I felt was amazing, but I
Yeah.
don't remember that much of the video or introduction to it.
I thought it was very moving. I think Medal of Honor Frontlines was the first game I
I was
seriously
considering
played.
that intro too as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it starts it's reading the letter from this General Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Eisenhower, and
Is that while you're like going in the ship?
No. This is
No, it's
still
like
the actual footage reel
Yeah,
of
actually,
black
like
and
the-
white of the troops like getting into the ships about to go to D-Day.
Okay.
And then after that ends, then it goes to, it's kind of like a gameplay cinematic where you're in the ship looking around at all your comrades, and he's like 30 seconds, and then you're just like so tense, and all of a sudden it just hits you like a train, and then it's, yeah. Sorry.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Alright, so your
Okay.
favorite cinematics?
I feel bad because I thought we were all going to do a top 5, so can I do my top 2, which is technically 3 games, 2 games tied for my number 2, but my number 1, and by the way, my number 1 and number 2, David.
You're much better. I will say why I can get out of this.
Well, what's the game first? Go ahead and say what the game
Okay,
is.
so actually these 3 games are actually my 3 favorite video games of all time, and they're also very narrative-driven games. And this is why they're pretty much here, because I feel like they're immediately getting the story, they're immediately getting you grounded in the story. The first one is the introduction to The Last of Us. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but it's very successfully communicating these characters to each other and to the audience, and having them being very relatable, people that we care about. And so it's just immediately, these are people that we can relate with. And it does some very awesome things cinematic-wise, interesting techniques, especially with audio. I really appreciate, and again, I don't want to give away too much for the sake of spoilers, but The Last of Us is by large my favorite video game of all time to date, and it is a very narrative-driven game, and I think it just hits the ground running with its narrative in a very tasteful way.
Yes.
Here's right here when you mention it.
Yeah, as someone who hasn't played the game but has seen the cinematic intro, I will go back on YouTube, like, just if I'm feeling sad or something like that, just because it is such a emotionally driven cinematic, for sure.
It goes back to like how I find it so impressive that you can get such deep, you can care so deeply about these characters in such a short time of knowing them. And that goes for short films as well. Like the fact that that an artist can convey that in such a little time is impressive. Right? And the next 2, the number 2 spot, I tied with Ico and Shell the Colossus. These are games that especially if anyone's going into video games as a developer, a designer, no matter what, please play these video
Are you
games.
gonna spoil something? Because I'm about to start that game, like literally.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
it's-
these are definitely not spoilers. They're really cool ways of setting up the
He
world.
dies.
See, what happens is the father. No, but Ico starts out with a boy. He's in shackles, and he also has horns, and he's being taken to this castle, an abandoned castle.
No, just with that, I'm already like.
It's so interesting. It's
Yeah.
like, what is this? And the thing is, that's pretty much, there's very few cinematics. It is a fairly cinematic-ish game. It's a very heavy narrative game, but it does so much with, just like The Last of Us. The Last of Us has the lifeblood of Ico and Shell the Colossus flowing through it, and that's why I absolutely love these games. They are telling a compelling story through gameplay, and they're having the narrative influence our gameplay experience. It's awesome. So immediately, Ico is also hitting the ground running, like we're interested in these. Who is this boy? What's going on here? Is he being cursed? Is he being banished? What's going on here? Shell the Colossus also starts off very similar. We just see a young man with someone who seems to be hurt on his horse, and they're traveling to a far and distant land.
Yeah.
It seems to be very dark, sad, somber. It's just both Ico and Shadow Class are immediately setting up the emotional tone for these games to follow. And then for the rest of the time, it's mostly gameplay. There's some cinematics here and there, but it's mostly telling the story through gameplay. So actually, both of these games, I think they have like fairly long cinematics for intro. Most video games, they want the intro cinematic to be really quick, especially contemporary game designs. They want to be really quick so you can get right into the game, get into the gameplay, and then
which can work in its own ways. I mean, I think it's interesting whenever you're just giving like PT, you wake up.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, I'm not trying to say like this is the one way to do it. I think it's so interesting because most video game design is like, we don't want to waste our time with the cinematic. You want to get straight to the gameplay, and that's what a lot of high-level video game philosophy is teaching us. But it's so interesting. Ico and Shadow Colossus work so well, and they have this really long intro cutscene to establish everything.
For it to work that way.
Yeah,
so well.
It just breaks so many rules and works so well. So those are my two. Also want to give a shout out to BioShock's intro. Jaw dropped immediately. I am engrossed in this world of Rapture. Awesome cinematic intro.
I agree. Alright. And number one, are you going to talk about the one or?
No, yeah, I did talk about the Last of Us and Ico and Shadow Colossus.
So, but you didn't say Last of Us is your favorite introduction with little girl. Even though it's
I didn't want to like spoil anything, but I said like, it immediately. I care about these characters.
Even though I feel bad for what I said earlier about spoiling the
no worries,
aspect too, I feel like an intro really, in a way, can't really spoil much, because it really is just going to set the game for you.
Yeah.
Everything is in the main story.
But there's movies that do that.
It's the intro of the game that makes you.
I mean, I remember seeing a promo of the. I remember seeing the intro of what happens to Shepard in an intro for Mass Effect 2. Like, I kind of knew buying the game that something was going to happen to Shepard. Like, and you also kind of know because it switches from. Because the first one, it was just who was the developer? I can't remember. BioWare was just a single developer, and I think they published it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
EA published them.
Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm.
For the first one?
Yeah, all of the series. EA published all of Mass Effect.
Because, well, my understanding was that they, for Mass Effect 2, purchased the Mass Effect franchise, EA, and then became just the producer. They still had BioWare do the. That was just my understanding. I mean,
I think so.
Well,
I don't know.
Shall we continue with it?
Yeah. I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
Well, now that I remember, I think trying to remember, but the first thing that came to mind, sadly, and we talked about it, but is Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we did talk about this.
Lord of the Rings for GameCube. I didn't play the Flesh of the Ring, but I played the Two Towers, and that's a game that a number of my friends and I played, and it was one of a few, I guess, at that time when maybe like middle school. I was. Well, how long ago is that? Maybe like 8 or 6 years ago, 8 years ago.
What year was it?
I'm not sure. So it was probably middle school. That was probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was. But I guess it uses the movie, and in a way it's cheating because it obviously has higher production and everything. But in a way, now that I think about it, is because I was able to set myself in the world, the gameplay became that much more interesting. Because I already had, and like Oblivion, maybe people who had a better imagination or something, or are used to that. They can set themselves in every game inside that universe and be like, I feel like I'm part of this.
Yeah.
And I think with Lord of the Rings in that game, even though the gameplay itself isn't really following that much of the story, it's just really, the gameplay is really fun, but the intro with like the start of the movie, the Two Towers, and just parts of it that are crucial in the story actually really got me into the game, and you just feel like you're making a difference.
You're almost in the movie pretty much.
Yeah, and And the movie, that's what it does greatly. It feels like you know they're gonna make it just because movies have to, but you think like it can't be possible. Like it's just in the journey you're interested in it. And I think that's even though they're using the movie, I do feel, and that's for a game that I played that long ago. That's like comes instantly to mind. I think it's worth mentioning.
Oh.
The other one is Metro 2033.
What console did that come out for?
PS3, Xbox 360, PC.
Yeah. Either there's a starting scene or it's you play a little bit and then there's like a formal introduction. I don't know if that counts for what we're saying.
Yeah, I'll identify it as long.
But it brings you into this world where, I mean, just the concept of it, where you have to live in the subway system because that's the only place where radiation isn't really reaching you as much as the outside, and the outside is mostly frozen, and you go outside during the game because you have gas masks and stuff. But just that the whole universe has, or not the whole universe, but the whole world has had to resort to living in the subways. That the story in itself is very interesting, but with the cinematics, it completes it very well, and just it lets you understand how the universe that which is based on a book, is being portrayed, and it's very convincing.
Okay. Well, since